We're getting close to election season again, and it is a good reminder whenever we get close to election season that you should get out there and you should make your voice heard. The most direct method, of course, is by voting. Every 4 years, we are reminded that we are supposed to live in a democracy, and every 4 years, it seems that less and less people vote. There's always going to be some asshole out there telling you not to vote, it doesn't matter, blah, blah, blah. Some guy always talking about how this is why I don't vote, because both fucking sides are the same, something like that. Everybody out there trying to get you to not participate, to not do your civic duty. Always trying to find one excuse after another. And, a lot of this comes from the Republicans, to be honest, because the Republicans don't like it when people vote. They don't like it when people vote because it is demonstrable. It's been shown that when less people vote, Republican Party wins more elections. That's just how it is. This is why the Republican Party actively tries to stop people from voting. This is why they do things like they purge the voter rolls. This is the thing you see every fucking election. They try to stop people from doing things like ballot harvesting is what they call it. You know what ballot harvesting is when you have a drop-off and you just sort of collect the ballot for somebody else and you drop it off for them. They try to outlaw that. It's not illegal. It's not illegal to drop something off. I mean, are you tampering with the ballot? No. Right? Can you prove that they tampered with the ballot? No, you can't. Okay? But they want to outlaw that anyway. Why? Because they don't want to make it easy for people to vote. They want to get rid of things like Sunday voting. They want to make it all just one day. It's like some places in the country, you can vote over the course of a couple of days. They want to get rid of that shit. Anything that makes it easier for people to vote. There's even a few laws in some of the southern states where you can go to jail if you give anybody something while they're voting. Like, so for example, if you give someone a glass of water while they're waiting in line in Georgia, you can go to jail. That's considered a bribe for some reason, right? And so this is what happens is that they'll go and they'll shut down polling places in say predominantly black areas in Georgia, like in Atlanta or something like that. And people will be sitting there for 12 hours waiting in line to vote, and it'll be hot outside or whatever. They can't leave. And then if you go by and you give them a glass of water, you go to jail. If you go by and you give them a sandwich because they've been sitting there for fucking 6 hours and they're hungry and shit, you go to jail. If you hold their place for them in line so they can go and use the bathroom, and if you come back and you get caught holding their place for them in line, you can go to jail. Any kind of material assistance, that's a fucking law in Georgia. We have Republicans to thank for this. And in the past, they've always kind of disguised their disdain for the general public exercising their civic duty to vote. They've always kind of disguised that and said, oh, we want people to vote, but we just want it to be fair. We want it to be equal. Making it so that people can just mail in their votes instead of waiting in line for fucking 16 hours is not equal for some reason. Right? That's not fair and equal, right? Making sure that people can't just go register the same day they vote or whatever. Oh, that's not equal, right? They've always tried to hide it. And the current crop of the Republican Party has kind of said, fuck all that. And now they're just straight out saying the quiet part out loud. They don't want people to fucking vote anymore. They don't give a shit anymore. They don't care about hiding it anymore. And it kind of really shows how far down the fascist rabbit hole the GOP has actually gotten. Most famous example of that is Vivek Ramaswamy. This is Vivek Ramaswamy about 7 months ago, talking about how he doesn't want young people to vote. Let's listen to what the man has to say.
The Constitution is, first of all, the best operating document for a free society known to mankind. This is my number one reason why I'm on the side of not a national divorce, but a national revival, because once you have a national divorce, the Constitution itself is gone.
Remember, this is right around the time that Marjorie Taylor Greene was talking about a national divorce, i.e. seceding from the Union, is what she was talking about. Although the way that she made it sound She made it sound more like she wanted to kick the blue states out of the Union. Like she wanted to remain, the red states to be the actual United States, and then the blue states would be like removed. That was part of the actual national discussion for a little while, at least in the Republican side, actually talking about splitting up the United States. But we're here to talk about voting, so let's continue.
One of the things that we don't do a good enough job of in this country is teaching the next generation what the Constitution actually says. Okay? So one of the things I favor, this is controversial to some people. If you want to be 18 years old, graduate from high school, and cast a ballot in this country at a young age, you better at least pass the civics portion of the test that immigrants have to pass to actually come to this country. But revive our civic lifeblood. So we're going to have to think big about
So he wants you to have to pass a test in order to vote. But only if you're under 25. So if you're 26, it's okay. What is the big difference between someone who's 25 and someone who's 30? You're more likely to vote Republican over the age of 25. That's why. Because you're more likely to have a higher paying job, right? If you're under 25, you're more likely to be a kid, probably work for less. So you're more likely to be, they figure, someone who identifies with their values, i.e. somebody who wants lower taxes. That's what they're banking on, right? So nope, 25 and 364 days, not allowed to vote. 25 and 365 days, vote, according to Vivek Ramaswamy. Right. So that basically means, according to this guy, you're not an actual real adult until you turn 25, according to him. They don't give a fuck about you. Right. They don't care about you, and you shouldn't have equal rights. You shouldn't be the same as every other adult in the country because you're more likely to vote for a Democrat. Moving on.
How we revive, it's not just, I don't want to just point to the leadership's failure to follow the Constitution. That's important. I mean, my job in Washington, D.C. to take on. But the real problem is we have to have a population and a culture in this country that's committed to it in the first place. And if I had to choose between one or the other, the whole ballgame is the second one. And that's where my focus is. And as the youngest person, as I said, I'd be the youngest person ever elected to the U.S. presidency if I'm elected. I take that as my chief responsibility to pass that on to the next generation. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Right. So just the arrogance dripping off this guy. Vivek Ramaswamy is a special kind of asshole. He is. He's a special kind of asshole. Did you hear that? He just basically, I need to pass on the reverence for the Constitution and understanding for the Constitution, and that's why I want to stop people from voting. That's basically what he just said right there. He wants to stop people from voting because young people, in his opinion, don't have an appreciation or knowledge of the Constitution. Just think about that for a second. Think about the backwards fucking logic there. I'm gonna preserve democracy by restricting democracy. We're gonna save our democratic institutions by stopping people from voting. And the way that he dresses it in the language of patriotism. I'm a patriot by stopping people from voting. I'm a patriot from stopping the representation of this certain segment of the population. Why? Because they don't deserve it, in his opinion. Kind of sounds a little bit like Jim Crow to me. They did the same thing back in the 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s against black people in this country. They made, certain states, they made them take a test before you could vote. You ever seen one of them Jim Crow tests? They're absolutely fucking bananas. It's like, it's all just trick questions. Let's go ahead and turn this shit off. It's trick questions and shit that doesn't make sense on purpose. I mean, is that what they want us to do? Is they want young people to take a fucking test? You realize that they'll make the test like that. You'll never be able to pass the fucking test. That's the whole point. Anybody who's out there, Republicans out there watching this, thinking that, this is a good way of stopping them liberals from voting, It'll stop everybody under that age group of voting. And that's what they want. They want that because you're more likely to vote for a Democrat the younger you are. That's just how it goes. You know, there's certain demographics that you're more likely to vote for a Democrat. If you're black, if you're not white, you're more likely to vote for a Democrat. Okay. If you make a certain amount of money, that is, if you make above, like slightly above the national average, you're likely to vote for a Democrat. Right? But not too much. If you make the more than that, you're more likely to vote Republican. If you make more, you know, because the rich people vote Republican in order to like cut their taxes. So it's only like the middle class incomes more likely to vote Democrat. Like if you make less than the average, you're more likely to vote Republican. That's kind of strange, right? If you have that, like the more education you have, the more likely you are to vote Democrat. Like, so it's those things. It's like, so the younger you are, the more money you make, the more education you have. It's like basically the more successful you are as a person, the more likely you are to vote Democrat. You know, but not too successful. If you're super duper successful, then you're a Republican. That's how it works. Like the super duper rich people are all fucking Republicans. So it's just, that's how the demographics work. So what are they doing? They want to stop those people from voting. It's like, instead of trying to address what those people want, what young people want in this country, instead of trying to come up with any policies or anything like that that might actually get young people to vote for them, they've decided to just not only just abandon that entire demographic, but also do everything they can to stop them from voting in the first place. Because they don't, it's like, it's more important for them, the fascist bullshit and cutting taxes for rich people and using, you know, hate and fear and bigotry in order to get elected and turn people against each other so that they can run away with all the money. That's more important to them than legitimately taking power.
Hello folks, if you like what I do and you want to support the channel, please consider buying something from my Etsy shop, supporting me on Patreon, liking and subscribing, and checking me out across my social media links listed below. Thank you all so much, and see you next time.